Are you someone who thinks that you can only buy a house with a mortgage and a job? My name's Grant Beecham, and today I am here to bust that myth, and I'm going to give you 3 ways that you can buy property with absolutely zero of your own money. And the first strategy is a lease option agreement. Now, a lease option agreement is where you agree to buy a house from a landlord or a property owner, but you have the option to buy within a given time frame, but not the obligation. So this is a really powerful method because you can offer market value, or you can offer even above market value, because we know that if you are going to buy within a certain time frame, let's say it's 7 years, which is quite typical, you know that in 7 years that house is going to be worth most likely 50% more than what it is now. Historically, house prices double every 10 years. And if for whatever reason the house has not increased in value and you don't think the deal is worth it in 7 years, you simply don't have to take it. It's an option, not an obligation. Now, you might say, why would a landlord agree to this option? Well, the first reason is because sometimes houses are a massive headache that a landlord just wants to get rid of instantly. Think about having a migraine. You don't want to get rid of a migraine in 2 months. A migraine is such a pain, you just want to get rid of it now. So you take a pill and you just get rid of it. Well, you could be the pill to the landlord's headache. Because if you sign a lease option agreement, you basically become the landlord there and then, and you take over you can take over the mortgage payments, you take over any tenants, you take over all of the stress, basically. And that can be music to a landlord's ears, because their other options are to sell the property or to rent out the property again. Now, if you're selling a property, you've got to deal with estate agents, buyers, solicitors. You've still got the headache for months. If you're going to find a new tenant, you have to deal with estate agents, tenants. It's still a headache. So that's the first reason. The second reason is there might be negative equity. Now, negative equity is where you bought a house for more than what it is worth, market value right now. Now, in 2024, this is actually quite prominent because if you remember in 2022, and especially in the summer of 2022, house prices and house buyers went crazy. There was like a frenzy everywhere in the UK. It was more prominent in some parts, but people were putting in like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 over asking price, and it was really common to be getting like 10, 15 offers in the summer of 22 within the first few days. It was just mental. So it really pushed people to put in silly offers, and some people kind of got caught up in the hype and they got caught out a little bit. So there's actually a lot of homeowners and landlords that are in negative equity in 2024 because since 2022, house prices have come down a little bit. So, and also it triggers that emotional response. Like, if a landlord has bought, or a homeowner has bought a property for a certain amount, for them to sell at less than what they bought, it triggers this emotional response, and a lot of the time, like, they just shut down to it. But nobody is going to offer on a house in 2024 what someone offered in the summer of 2022 because it was just crazy prices. So if you come along and say, I will offer you market value right now, what you paid in 2022, I'll offer you that, maybe even a little bit more, you basically become the only viable option for them. So, yeah, why wouldn't a landlord accept it? You're the only person that's taking that dilemma, that emotional response that they've got, and say, yeah, I'll cover the mortgage that you have on it. I'll pay you what you paid for it in 2022. I'll get rid of your problem. But in 5 to 7 years, when the market's recovered. However, in the meantime, I'm going to cover your mortgage costs and I'll be the landlord. I'll take over all the responsibility. You'll have no stress. It starts to sound better when you put it into context. Now, one thing I will say with lease option agreements is if you were going to do this, you need to make sure that if the property is on a residential mortgage, that you can change that residential mortgage to a buy-to-let mortgage after you've signed the deal. Because if it's on a residential mortgage, and you don't know that the lender will change it to a buy-to-let mortgage until after you've signed the lease option agreement, and they say, we are not changing it, then you can't rent out that property. And then basically you're paying the mortgage and you can't rent it out, you can't put tenants in there, so you're going to be paying that mortgage with literally no income from the property. It's a dead property. So you just need to make sure you ask the property owner, is it a residential mortgage? If they say yeah, say, before we sign this lease option agreement, can you just go to your lender, tell them what we're doing, and ask if it's going to be viable for us to change to a buy-to-let mortgage once this happens. And if they say no, or if the lender says we can't do that, walk away. If they say they can do that, great. The second option to buy a house with zero money is a joint venture partnership. Now, a joint venture partnership is usually between two people. However, it can be multiple people. And a joint venture, usually you have to bring, well, one person brings some value, the other brings some value. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but usually one person brings in the money and the other person brings in skills such as finding below market value deals, taking it through the refurb, and then selling the property at the end, dealing with estate agents and all that kind of thing. So if you have no money, but you can find below market value deals, you can organise a refurb, and you can deal with estate agents and solicitors and buy and sell a property, then your skills are just as valuable as the person that's bringing the money. So you can partner, buy a house, and then split the profits. However, with a joint venture, you do need to be careful who you're working with. I wouldn't just work with anybody, and the main thing is that you have a contract written up and it explains exactly the role of the 2 or 3 people or 4 people that are involved. So if one person is bringing the money, great. What is your role? Are you in charge of finding the deal, dealing with estate agents, refurbing the property, selling the property? Are you finding the solicitors? Okay, it needs to be written down so that nobody can say, you were supposed to do this. Oh really? I thought you were doing that. It needs to be clear. The third option to buy a property with absolutely zero of your own money is to simply borrow all of the money. And I'm not talking about borrowing off the bank, I'm talking about borrowing off a private investor. And you can then give that private investor a return on their money, a fixed return. So you might give them a 10% fixed return. Right now in 2024, you really need to give them 10% because right now you can get like 6% on your savings. So if you can get 6% in the bank, you need to be offering more than the bank because you are a riskier investment than the bank, arguably. I would say that someone borrowing money to buy houses is a riskier investment. However, in 2019 and 2020, when the interest rates were so incredibly low, you could get away with offering 4 and 5% to your investor, whereas now really you need to be offering 10% to get them interested. However, when you are borrowing money like this, you need to make sure that the deal stacks and that you can 100% pay your investor back, even if you don't sell the house for what you thought you were going to get. Because there is a great deal of difference in not making money in a joint venture partnership and to not being able to pay back a private investor. If you don't pay back a private investor, you're going to be breaking the terms of your contract and you are going to have legal troubles. This is something that you want to avoid, which is why I would not recommend this method for someone who is buying their first property. This method should be for someone who has been through the refurb stage, the buying stage, the selling stage of houses. If you do this with no experience, the chances are you are going to make mistakes and then you're not going to be able to pay your investor back, which is something that you just do not want to go down. Which also brings me on to the point of why would an investor invest into you? Well, they'd invest in you because you're offering them a higher return. But more so, they need a reason to invest in you. So when I say you shouldn't be doing this as a first-time buyer or investor, I'm saying you should really have experience under your belt or get experience under your belt before doing this. And if you are doing this, you need to document everything. Document it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And this is where investors will find you, and they can see that you are a legitimate investor. You can find below market value deals. You've bought the deal, you've refurbed it, and you've sold it, and they can see the process. This is very easy to document that on YouTube. So if you can document that, investors will come to you, they will find you, and they will say, I would like to invest my money in you. Can you find me something like this? So they are my 3 methods of how you can buy houses and make money from houses with absolutely zero of your own money. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed the video, give it a like and tell me in the comments, what method would you prefer to use? If you had zero money, what method would you be going for? If you have any questions about the methods that I've talked about today, drop a question in the comments. Find me on Instagram if you want, drop me a message on there, and I will do my best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you, and I will see you next time.